energy, it is always linked with economics, the equity and the environment. And probably now the time has come when people have been focusing more on environment and also on equity. Because in the today's age, when we have the aspiration to grow at 7-8%, and we also want to be a growth engine for the global economy, we have the challenges at home that the demographic dividend which we always talk about and we want to encash, it has its own need and necessity. Unless we fruitfully engage this younger generation on which we want to encash the demography, probably we won't be able to meet the objective. So therefore, they need a fruitful economic engagement. For that, you need to create enough job. Economy has to grow. If economy has to grow, the energy has to grow. So the way the estimates are projected by various institutions, by 2030, India's energy demand is going to grow 3 times. But the point in the morning, it was being discussed, what is the sustainable energy mix in our basket and how do we handle this, the challenging environment which we are facing across the fossil fuel. Some of the important issue in my mind, probably as a country, what we need and which we have been debating in various forums, is an integrated energy policy which has been debated along, but it has not come so far. Where probably a thoughtful assessment has to be made that what is going to be the energy mix suitable for the Indian context. And in that, every subset of the energy can probably pan out their development plan for next decade, 3 decades or so. But some of the issue which we discussed in the morning was when we talk about environment, the kind of problem we are facing in the emission side. Today itself, if you read the newspaper Times of India, it says that the largest number of deaths taking because of environment is in India. We are ahead of China now. That's the report today morning Times of India has reported. And every day when we scan through the major national paper, there are orders, there are discussions in the NGT, in the Supreme Courts, but the reality is that we are still not able to face the menace of this pollution. So the first factor which should probably guide us to decide the energy mix is the environmental concern. And the second thing is about the land. The political discourse of this country has changed because of the issue and concern around land. And the way it started in West Bengal, now it is spreading across the country. And the third issue is about the water. And as our former President rightly said, that next war could be on water. So therefore, apart from environment, the land and water, which is more critical as far as the Indian context is concerned, will help us to shape the energy basket for future. The huge investment which is required in modernization of our infrastructure. The financing is another major challenge which probably will help us, will create some kind of issues for us because the recent NPAs around the energy sector, not only in power sector, around the energy sector, is a matter of concern for all of us. So keeping all these in mind, the time has come that we create an overarching energy policy which helps us to carve out the energy mix, and that becomes a directional policy for all across the energy sector. Before I come to the gas and specific subject matter, let me just give you some of the facts around what is the option along the energy spectrum going from coal to the renewable energy. Some of the facts which we must remember now when we plan our future. First is the nuclear. What is happening around the nuclear energy? If you look at the long lead time, if you look at the high upfront capital cost, and the perception the public receives at large on the nuclear power plants, it is causing enormous pressure on all the players around nuclear energy. Today morning news, which reported about $6.2 billion loss reported by Toshiba. If you see the nuclear energy company like Westinghouse, the Areva, they all are having huge financial problems. So therefore, nuclear energy, how fast it will be able to meet our requirement of energy mix is a question mark. When we talk about hydro, often we debate that we have not been able to harness the potential of hydropower, especially in Bhutan and Nepal, but it has its own geopolitical issues. When we talk about Himalayan state, we have recent incident which is fresh in our mind, what happened in Uttarakhand. So all the hydropower, apart from their geological risk, the cost today is not less than 7-8 rupees in the hydropower also. So this is also an issue where we need to see that to what extent this hydropower can contribute in our energy mix. When we talk about coal, we have discussed a lot in the morning about coal. India has huge reserves of coal, but challenge for us is that how do we make it sustainable, environment friendly, how do we bring the new technology, how do we handle the issue of land and water. That's a matter of subject which we need to deal when we dwell on this subject. But some of the facts, if you see what happened in China, China as a matter of policy has limited their overall coal-fired capacity to 1100 gigawatt by 2020. It's a policy statement given by Chinese. And they have cancelled the new coal-based power plant recently. In US, of course, the major shift has been towards renewable and shale, but in the new administration, when it is there in place, what is going to the future is a matter of uncertainty which we have to wait and watch. In the United States alone, the share of coal-based power is reducing. Now, what happens in future, which we have to wait and watch. But in the mining company in the United States, if you look at the mining companies, the top 4 coal mining companies in the United States were valued at $34 billion in 2011. And today, their net worth put together is 150 million. From 34 billion, they have come down to 150 million. 2 of the major coal mining companies in the United States have filed their bankruptcy. So this is the stage of the coal mining companies. Now, if you look at the overall projection by IEA, the global energy mix, the contribution of coal-based power from 2013, which was 40%, is likely to reduce to 36%. So if you see all these things on the Indian side when we come, we need to really invest a huge amount of capital investment in bringing the new technology and to go to the supercritical coal-based power plant. Nevertheless, the level of emission will always remain a concern for all of us together. And the recent announcement by the government that 20,000 megawatt new coal-based power plant we want to set up and retire the old power plant, which will require an investment of almost 1 lakh crore. So these are the challenges which we have to keep in mind when we talk about the coal-based power. And the existing power plant, when they have to meet the new environmental norm, has to invest further more, 1 to 1.5 crore per megawatt to bring the cleaner technology. On the renewable space, when we have huge focus now after the COP21, and in our country in particular, but if you look at the subsidy globally, all the governments together, they are almost paying $135 billion subsidy on the renewables today, which is going to increase to almost $250 billion by 2030. So this is the amount of subsidy. And somebody was mentioning about Germany has been the lead in the renewable energy, where the renewable energy is competing with the gas. That's a fact. But at the same time, the huge amount of money is being invested in Germany to evacuate the renewable energy power and the cost in the infrastructure, which we need to keep a factor in mind. In our case, in the country, Tamil Nadu has the highest share of renewable energy. But if you look at the last year's CAG report, Tamil Nadu lost 2,000 crore on account of lack of infrastructure to evacuate the renewable energy. So that's the fact. The contribution of renewable energy, which we are thinking in a big way, has to be kept in mind. In the recent report I was seeing yesterday before coming to this conference, the latest study done by Niti Aayog, they have highlighted the huge amount of gap in terms of high cost of financing, the microgrid which we need to set up, and taxes as duty. This needs to be a new area of focus if we really want to harness the renewable energy. The 160 gigawatt of renewable energy on solar and wind by 2020 will require an investment of 15 lakh crore. And the other important aspect which we have to keep in mind when we talk about renewable energy is the amount of land bank, which is a major concern as far as we are concerned. It will require almost 1,100 square kilometer land bank to meet these kind of targets. So these are some of the factors which are reality, but the question is not that whether we compete between A fuel and a B fuel. It's a question of how do we decorate our energy basket in such a manner that it remains sustainable, which is the theme of today's conference. In this context, where does the gas fit? Today, the gas share, rather than going up from 12%, has come down to 6%. And the government has a focus today to go into the gas-based economy and take it to the level of 15% in the energy basket. So therefore, the gas today can probably give all kind of advantage in terms of environmental concerns. It can easily address in terms of peaking power, in terms of meeting the efficiency in the various segments, especially in ceramics, in petrochemicals, in textile sectors, in transport. It can be a major handy fuel for us to increase our share of natural gas in the energy mix. But some of the facts which probably we have to bear in mind when we talk about gas and compare the gas-based power or gas-based energy costs with the coal. In my opinion, that may not be a fair way of comparing the two. If you look at the social cost of any business, we need to factor in. One of the report recently, which was published by IMF, it says that in India, we are spending almost 2 rupees 40 paisa per unit on the health costs because of the coal-based power. That's the study which is published by the IMF. But when we talk about cost, we don't give that kind of premium to the gas-based power. So therefore, if we have to really balance our energy basket, and if gas being one of the most benign fossil fuel available to the human society, and we all agree that we are now moving towards a cleaner technology, cleaner power, and the future is for renewable, but the fossil fuel is going to play a dominant role at least for 2, 3, 4 decades from now. And in that, how do we take benefit of the most benign fossil fuel, that is natural gas, is a matter which we all have to think. Definitely there is a focus in the government as well as at industry to create the infrastructure. But the challenge is that the existing infrastructure which has already been created, how do you optimally utilize? I remember all my panel member here has been my senior in the industry. There used to be a debate in the country that we don't have enough gas production. Then the time came when we have huge find in the KG basin. The time came we don't have infrastructure sufficient in the country. And now today, when we have possibility of substituting the gas through the import route, we have infrastructure there, we have investment in the downstream in the power sector and the gas sectors, but we don't have demand because of lack of policy, because of lack of incentive, because of the comparison between the coal-based and the gas-based energy. This is a major issue which we need to address. Therefore, in my opinion, that if we have to take advantage of gas to be a major player, to handle all these issues which have been coming across from different other segments of the fuel, we need to create a proper ecosystem for gas. Going forward, the gas pipeline infrastructure is going to be doubled. LNG import facilities are going to be doubled. The huge investment is taking place in the city gas, because before you take gas to your houses, you need to invest a huge amount of money, and creating infrastructure in an active city is a difficult task. So once we are creating this infrastructure, how do we optimally utilize towards the economy in the country is a challenge. So if gas has to find a suitable place in our energy basket, it needs a proper ecosystem across the value chain. And I believe that the new technology, especially in the case of gas-based power, the fuel cells have already taken place. In a big way, it is happening in the United States. The first project we have set up in Bangalore. The second project is now being set up. In the case of fuel cell, you need just 1% of the water what you need for normal coal-based thermal power plants. As far as the land is concerned, you need 1/10 of the land in the case of fuel cell. In the case of emissions, the emissions are down by 70 to 80% what is there in the most efficient combined cycle gas-based power plants. So these are the new technology which are coming around gas. We need to embrace this new technology. And the first project in India has already been launched in Bangalore. The second project is right now is being constructed today. So I believe that if we have to really increase the share of gas in the energy basket, which can meet the requirement of the emerging economy like India, where this gas can play a bridging fuel before we migrate in a bigger way to the renewable energy, it can be a supplementary and complementary fuel, not only in power sector, but across the sector. I think this is what is the need of the hour today, that how do we create that environment where we can give a proper place to gas. Now, on this subject, I have my own senior experts who have dwelled this subject in the industry. I will request, first of all, Sharma ji. I understand you have to leave, so I'll request Sharma ji to give his views and thought on this subject. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.